Dr. Andreas Andy Keller knew the timbered tents of the Theresienwiese as intimately as the molar map of a long-time patient. Most mornings he slipped into his white coat in his Schwabing clinic, but the September after his 40th birthday he hurried straight from the surgery to the festival grounds each evening, trading the sharp scent of eugenol for the yeasty perfume of Märzen. His receptionist teased that the dentist loved Oktoberfest almost as much as he loved enamel. The truth was closer to obsession. Andy collected limited edition Steins, memorized the histories of every brewery, and could hum the brass band repertoire backward. It was on a drizzly Wednesday, midway through the second week, that the first hint of rot entered his frothy paradise. Andy had volunteered as a judge for the Trachten Trivia competition, an easy assignment: pronounce the winners, pose for photos, accept a commemorative Stein emblazoned with a prancing lion. The MC pressed the ceramic tankard into his hands, still warm from the kiln, and Andy felt a shiver under the glaze. The Stein was heavier than logic allowed. He shook it beside his ear. Something dense thumped inside, muted yet unmistakable. The interior should have been hollow except for air and a swirl of residual kiln dust. When Andy angled the vessel to the light, he noticed the faintest seam running beneath the hand-painted rim, as if two shells had been bonded. Curiosity overrode decorum. Retreating behind a stack of crates, he withdrew his dental explorer from his pocket. Habit-made tools travel with him the way other men carried pocket knives. The slender probe slipped between seam and lid. A gentle twist, and the upper portion popped free with a dry click. Inside lay a cylindrical plug of off-white material, as smooth as river stone, yet latticed with delicate cross-hatching. It resembled a slice of tusk, perhaps scrimshaw in infancy, though the edges bore faint traces of burnt sugar, as if someone had tried to disguise pigment beneath a caramel varnish. Andy's clinic training seized control. He moistened a gauze pad, rubbed the surface, and watched a caramel film smear away to reveal creamy luster beneath. Ivory, no doubt. The dense thump he'd heard was a placeholder to mask the altered weight of the sealed Stein and make it feel full. Andy's pulse sped like an Oompa drumline. Europe's black market for ivory carvings had shifted underground after successive bans. Smugglers turned imaginative. But beer steins as shipping containers? Ingenious, if blasphemous in Bavaria. He snapped photos on his phone, replaced the plug, and resealed the lid as best he could. On stage, a band launched into Ein Prosit, and revelers rose, sloshing amber arcs into neighboring laps. None noticed the dentist slip away. Munich's Kriminalpolizei headquarters sat a few tram stops from Andy's clinic. He arrived at dusk, hair smelling of hops, Stein wrapped in a souvenir scarf. The duty officer cocked an eyebrow when the dentist presented his explanation. "Herr Doktor, is this a joke? Oktoberfest brings many lost and found items, but tusks in beer mugs." "I'm telling you," Andy insisted, tapping the lid. "Check the density." "That's elephant ivory. Illegal to import or export since EU Regulation 865/2006. The officer scribbled half-heartedly. "You said you disassembled festival property?" "I'm a licensed dentist and certified forensic odontologist," Andy replied, producing ID. "I handle small, delicate materials daily. The Stein remains intact." His credentials tilted the scale. The officer summoned Detective Lena Brandt of the Umweltkriminality Unit and Environmental Crimes. She arrived in a tailored jacket, eyes as sharp as cracked ice. "Walk me through everything, start to finish," she said, voice low enough to calm anxious dogs. As Andy recounted the incident, Lena rotated the Stein, tapping its base. "We've been chasing rumors of a new smuggling route," she murmured. "Collectors in Asia pay fortunes for Bavarian craftsmanship combined with contraband. The novelty increases value." She confiscated the Stein for lab analysis, but not before promising Andy a follow-up. The dentist left headquarters buoyed by adrenaline and a flicker of pride. He had performed a civic duty. Yet as he approached the tram stop, two men detached from the shadows. One wore a felt hat plumaged with goose feathers, ordinary fest garb, and the other cradled a gingerbread heart. Their smiles were festive, their eyes were not. "You open things that do not belong to you," Hatman said in an accent Andy couldn't place, part Dutch, part South African. "We must discourage curiosities." In the clinic, Andy had faced belligerent patients thrice his mass, but scalpels and suction lines lent authority. Here, rain slicked the pavement. He stepped back, mouth dry. Gingerbread man reached inside his jacket. Andy's nerves fired flight. He bolted toward the tram tracks, vaulted the barrier, and sprinted between arriving coaches. Swearing echoed behind him, footsteps failed to follow. The men hesitated at the electrified rails. Panting, Andy navigated alleys until lights of his apartment flickered above a bakery. He double-locked the door, heart hammering like a fest drum. By morning, rational thought assembled. The men might have been muggers. Coincidence was plausible. But Andy's dental instinct prized patterns. Randomness seldom repeated. He called Detective Brandt. Her line routed to voicemail. He left a message describing the incident and volunteered further assistance. The next day Andy examined molars, advised flossing, and tried not to picture ivory shards hidden in steins across festival tents. Mid-afternoon, his receptionist knocked on the surgery door. "Visitor for you, Herr Doctor." Andy wiped his gloves and stepped into the hallway, finding Detective Brandt herself. "We analyzed the plug," she said without preamble. "African elephant. Post-convention ban, likely poached within the past 5 years. Radiocarbon dating narrowcasts to northern Mozambique." She handed him a folder. "Customs flagged no tusk shipments, which means someone imported raw material in fragments or processed it here. We believe Oktoberfest prizes are scheduled for export after the festival via private collectors." She studied his face. "Witness intimidation happened sooner than we expected. We can assign protection, but I'd prefer offense over defense. Your familiarity with the festival could help us locate the distribution hub." Andy hesitated. "I clean teeth, Detective. Smiling children and candy scoldings. That's my battlefield. Smugglers exploited your passion for collecting. That makes you perfect bait." So began an unlikely partnership. The festival-loving dentist and the environmental crimes detective. They met that evening in a plain van parked near the Löwenbräu Brew tent. Lena issued Andy a discreet body camera disguised as a shirt button and an earpiece tucked behind his sideburn. His assignment was simple. Enter the sprawling collectible stall vancular shed where high-tier trivial winners redeemed prizes, required replacement for a supposedly cracked Stein, and observe. Andy inhaled malted air and strode inside. Rows of limited edition Steins lined glass cabinets, pewter lids catching tent lights. An elderly man in lederhosen and a forest green waistcoat greeted him. "Grüß Gott!" Looking to complete the set, Andy presented the damaged Stein, which Lena had swapped for a harmless replica. "Dropped it minutes after winning. Humiliating," he said. The clerk clicked his tongue sympathetically and retreated to a back room to fetch an exchange. Through Andy's earpiece, Lena whispered, "Describe surroundings." Andy relayed details, layout, exits, security cameras. When the clerk returned, Andy feigned gratitude and left. Outside, he ducked behind a pretzel cart, cracked the seam with his explorer, and confirmed another ivory core hidden within. The clerk didn't even check serial numbers, Andy muttered. "It's routine for them." Lena radioed units to discreetly seize the stall's remaining stock after closing, but she wanted the organization's apex, not its foot soldiers. Overnight, forensic analysts drilled into 16 seized steins. 15 contained ivory, 1 contained rhino horn dyed with tea. Each piece bore faint carvings, unfinished Netsuke-like blanks, ready for master artisans abroad. Using serial codes on shipping labels stored under the stall's cash register, detectives traced a warehouse in Sendling, leased by a shell company called Bavariat Logistics. A raid would require magistrate approval, and magistrates demanded more than circumstantial curiosities. Detectives needed inside confirmation. 2 nights later, Andy stood once more in the tent, pretending nostalgia while his stomach churned. Lena's plan involved infiltration during a private after-hours auction rumoured among Stein collectors. Invitations bore embossed oak leaves. Andy's dental academy colleague turned art broker Conrad Meyer had lent his pass, shocked by the story, yet thrilled by espionage. Lena outfitted Andy with a hollow molar, how fitting, containing a Bluetooth transmitter able to piggyback on his phone signal, creating a live audio feed. Half 1 o'clock IMM, the tense music died. Security herded the last drunkards outside. 24 remaining guests, sporting cufflinks and alpine hats too pristine, received wristbands and descended a spiral staircase previously hidden beneath a false barrel. Andy's heart pounded. He counted secret steps. 8 down. Corridor trimmed with insulation foam. Door of reinforced steel. Inside the subterranean hall, fluorescent lights revealed metal shelving stacked with lacquered crates the size of shoeboxes. The containers for the cause. A long table displayed pygmy hippo teeth, narwhal tusk sections, and intricate rice grain carvings like pagan chessmen. Nothing matched the festival's jovial veneer. A tall woman with silver hair welcomed attendees in English. Each lot tonight is pre-cleared for discreet export. Our couriers appreciate your punctual payment. She gestured to uniform Steins lining one shelf. For our theme, she joked. The crowd chuckled. Andy fought nausea. He recognized Gingerbread Man from the tram incident, now wearing a navy blazer, scanning faces. Andy angled away, focusing on a display of mahjong tiles, reminding himself of Lena's instructions. Count crates, identify the courier boss, leave safely. But as bids rose, 10,000 here, 15 there, Andy noticed Hatman too, arms crossed beside the door. Gingerbread Man's gaze snagged on Andy. Revelation rippled across his expression, like plaque scraped to nerve. He muttered to Hatman, who reached inside his jacket again. Panic clamped Andy's throat. He tapped his phone 3 times. The emergency cue Lena had programmed. A vibration acknowledged receipt. Hatman approached, blocking escape. "You again?" he said softly. "Dentist, yes? Curious little woodpecker, enjoying the show?" Andy managed, licking dry lips. The man's hand tightened on Andy's elbow. "Our hostess wishes a private word." Across the hall, the silver-hailed auctioneer's smile cooled. She gestured for Andy to join her near a shipping pallet shrink-wrapped in festival-branded paper. "Dr. Keller, correct?" she said. "Your reputation precedes you." "I'm flattered," Andy lied. "You pried open our gift to you. That shows initiative." She steepled manicured fingers. "We could use such precision in our operations." The proposition stunned him. "I fix teeth, not trophies," she laughed. "Ivory dentistry is an ancient art. Imagine bespoke inlays, carved from the world's finest organic material." Andy pictured canines capped in blood-soaked ivory, symbols of cruelty with every smile. "I'm content with ceramic composites," he answered, voice steadying. The woman's eyes chilled. "Then you are liability, not asset." She nodded subtly to Hatman. At that instant, a klaxon shrieked from the corridor. "Polizei!" echoed down the stairs, boots pounding. Chaos erupted, buyer scrambling, crates overturning, steins shattering like brittle crowns. In the confusion, Andy shoved Hatman away and ducked beneath a table. Fragments of ivory skittered underfoot like white cockroaches. Officers stormed in, weapons drawn. Over radio chatter, Andy recognized Lena's voice. "Secure suspects. Preserve evidence." Hatman lunged for Andy, but a baton cracked against his shoulder, courtesy of Detective Brandt herself. She hauled Andy upright, eyes flashing both relief and reprimand. "You okay?" "Little shaken," he said, "but all teeth intact." By dawn, 32 arrests were logged, including the silver-hailed auctioneer, real name Hélène de Klerk, wanted by Interpol for poaching connections in Mozambique. More than 500 kilograms of ivory relics were catalogued, destined for incineration per EU regulation. But paperwork remained, and testimonies. Andy spent the morning at headquarters, recounting events until his voice rasped. Lena pushed a coffee across the table and sighed. "We wouldn't have cracked this without you." Andy managed a wan smile. "Guess oral hygiene can fight environmental crime? Just don't make a habit of dodging traffickers between extractions," she warned, though her gratitude shone. A week later, Oktoberfest resumed its swirl of brass and foam. The Tracton in Trivia competition returned with stricter oversight. Prize steins now bore transparent bases revealing hollow insides, nothing more. Andy attended the closing night not as judge but as reveller, determined to reclaim joy from taint. He sipped cautiously, savouring caramel notes unmarred by illicit cargo. Midway through Rosamunde, Detective Brandt located him at a communal bench. She wore jeans, not a badge, and carried a plain Stein. "A thank you from the department," she said, handing it over. The weight felt honest like empty, and yet Andy instinctively tapped the bottom with a knuckle. No hidden surprises, she promised. He laughed, raising it in salute. Prost. They drank. Around them, thousands raised identical toasts, unaware of the cartel dismantled beneath their feet. The brass band swelled, people swayed, and the night sky above Munich filled with sparks from the Ferris wheel lights. Andy thought of enamel, ivory, the fragile shells encasing both teeth and traditions. He resolved to guard one and never again let the other hide darkness. When the last song ended and the tents began closing, Andy lingered by the exit, breathing the mingled scents of malt, sausage, and wet grass. Oktoberfest would return next year, as predictable as plaque, but vigilance like Flossing under his arm, lighter than the lies it once concealed, and set off toward the U-Bahn, lighter than the lies it once concealed, and set off toward the U-Bahn, the festival's echoes fading behind him like a well-completed drill, were loud, intimidating, ultimately restorative.